The baker stood between her and 3 thugs. Then the orc widow asked if he always courted women with pie. "Careful, baker. Stand that close again and people may... You think you want me?" The warning would have sounded stronger if the towering orc widow had not been trapped against his bakery wall by 3 drunken men. Rain hammered the alley. One thug held her black mourning cloak. Another blocked the road. The third reached toward one of her white tusks, while a watchman waited across the street for her to strike first. Naiyla could have broken all 3. Instead, she stood rigid, knowing one violent move would let Sebastian Graves seize the smokehouse her family had owned for 4 generations. Landon Pierce stepped outside, holding only a wooden pie paddle. Flour covered his sleeves. Fear showed plainly on his face, yet he placed himself between her and the men when one thug shoved him. Naiyla caught Landon before he fell. "If he touches you again," she murmured, "I may forget I am trying to behave." The men retreated when nearby shopkeepers began gathering. Minutes later, inside the bakery, Naiyla breathed in the steam, rising from Landon's nearly burned berry pie. "That smells." "Wonderful," Landon smiled at the dangerous woman dripping rain onto his floor. "You nearly got me beaten for it." She moved close enough for her breath to warm his cheek. "Nearly?" Before the story continues, tell us where you are watching from, and subscribe to Orc Bond Saga for more emotional human-orc romances. Stay until the end, because saving Naiyla's home will cost Landon far more than money. Landon's bakery was called the Bent Loaf. The name had never been intentional. A storm had twisted one chain supporting the painted sign 5 years earlier. Landon meant to repair it after replacing the leaking roof, then after fixing the oven hinge, then after paying the grain merchant. The sign remained bent. Inside, the bakery was narrow, warm, and stubbornly clean. 2 tables stood near the window. The counter had been repaired with 3 kinds of wood. A copper bowl caught rain beneath a ceiling crack, and the oven door closed only when Landon kicked the lower hinge. Naiyla noticed the polished pans and folded clothes. She also saw the half-empty flour bin, unpaid invoices beneath the counter, and the careful way Landon cut the burned edge from the pie before giving her the larger piece. She raised one eyebrow. Is this apology, gratitude, or courtship? "It is pie. Human customs are vague. That one is simple." Naiyla tested the nearest chair. The legs groaned. Landon stared at them. "You are about to insult my size. I'm about to move you to the bench." "Better." The bench was fixed to the wall and had once supported 3 grain sacks. It survived her. Landon poured tea into chipped cups. Naiyla held hers between large green hands marked by burns and knife scars. A pale line circled her left ring finger. Landon glanced at it. She caught him. "My husband is dead." He nearly dropped the teapot. "I did not ask. You were thinking." Loudly, "I was looking at your hand." That is where many thoughts begin. Landon turned away before she saw his smile. Naiyla tasted the pie. Her shoulders lowered, and for one breath she no longer looked prepared to fight the entire street. She looked cold, exhausted, and hungry. "What is inside?" "Blackberries." "Sour cherries." "A little honey." "Too little. Honey costs money. So does good food. That is why I sell it." She glanced at the empty tables. "Do you?" Landon stared. Naiyla took another. But the door opened before he decided whether to be offended. Sebastian Graves entered. Without removing his hat, he was broad through the middle, but carried himself with the vanity of a thinner man. His coat was expensive, though one cuff had been repaired with mismatched thread. His hair was combed carefully across a widening bare patch. He looked at Naiyla. "Then Landon, I heard there was trouble." "It has passed," Landon said. Sebastian brushed rain from his sleeve. "Trouble rarely passes. It changes addresses." He placed a folded paper on the counter. Naiyla did not touch it. 3 weeks late, Sebastian said, "I owe you nothing. Your husband did. My husband is buried. His signature is not. The loan had once been 60 silver crowns. Naiyla's late husband, Darius, had borrowed the money to replace 2 smoke ovens and repair the roof of her family smokehouse. The building had belonged to Naiyla's mother. her grandmother, and 2 generations before them. Its foundation stones carried the claw marks of her great-grandmother, who built the first curing pit after arriving in Brindleford with 1 knife, an iron pan, and 3 hungry children. Darius spent his final winter inside those walls. When fever weakened his legs, Naiyla carried him to the eastern oven each morning. He sat beside the smoke and told her when the oak burned too bitterly. After his death, Naiyla performed the orc household rite there. Most ashes were buried, but 1 handful was sealed inside a hollow. Chimney stone, so part of the dead remained near the fire that had fed the family. Darius's funeral band still hung beneath the chimney cap. Sebastian was not merely trying to take a business. He was trying to take Naiyla's inheritance, Darius's resting place, and the only building in Brindleford where she did not feel like a tolerated outsider. Landon read the figure. 68 crowns. Naiyla had already paid more than Darius originally borrowed. Sebastian continued adding inspection fees, late charges, and interest upon earlier interest. The southern road flooded, she said. My deliveries could not pass. Water is not mentioned in the agreement. Neither is mercy. I do not sell mercy. Landon looked at him. What do you sell? Sebastian's gaze moved to the bowl catching rainwater. Time. Something changed in his voice, not kindness, memory. His father had once owned a river warehouse. During a hard winter, creditors demanded payment before the spring caravans arrived. Sebastian had been 14 when men carried his mother's bed into the street. Neighbors watched from their windows. No one intervened. I learned early that the person holding the paper does not stand in the rain. For 1 second, Landon saw the frightened boy inside him. Then Sebastian looked at Naiyla's smoke-darkened hands, and I will never stand there again. He tapped the contract. If payment is not made before the autumn market closes, the smokehouse becomes mine. Naiyla's fingers tightened around her fork. The metal bent. Sebastian noticed. Then he turned toward Landon. Your rent is also due, Landon said. Nothing. Naiyla looked at him. Sebastian smiled. Faintly. Perhaps both of you should spend less time creating street disturbances and more time earning what you owe. He left. The bell rattled behind him. Naiyla placed the bent fork on the table. The men in the alley work for him. How do you know? The tall one collects payments from dock workers. They wanted me to strike first, so Sebastian could call you violent and seize the smokehouse before the deadline. Most of Brindleford's residents were human, and most feared orcs. Not always loudly. Fear appeared in empty seats, locked doors, and watchmen waiting for an orc to become the problem. A smaller number treated orcs neutrally when trade demanded it. Only a few were openly friendly. An orc could work, spend money, and rescue someone from danger. But if an orc struck a human first, every witness remembered only the size of the orcs. Hence Naiyla could have broken Sebastian's thugs. She could also have lost everything by doing it. Landon pushed the remaining pie toward her. What is this one? Not courtship. Disappointing. It is a business proposal. He explained that the flooded southern road would trap travelers in Brindleford. Naiyla had smoked meat. Landon had bread and an oven. Together they could sell hot meals for less than the Inza. You want to join our debts. I want to join our customers. That sounds less intimate. It is supposed to. Naiyla leaned closer. Are you certain? About the food? About only wanting my customers, Landon swallowed. I barely know you. That was not an answer. It was the safest one. Her gaze fell briefly to his mouth. Then she leaned back. Good. I was beginning to think you had no survival instinct. Outside, a horse screamed. Landon and Naiyla rushed to the window. A delivery wagon had lost a wheel. The frightened horse dragged the broken cart toward the river slope. Naiyla was already moving. Landon followed. Neither knew the wagon carried the last grain Landon could afford before winter. The horse tore through the lower street with one harness strap dragging. The wagon struck a market post. 2 grain sacks fell into the mud. A third split open, scattering flour across the road. Landon ran after it. Naiyla passed him within seconds. Each stride covered more ground than two of. The road curved toward the river bridge. The horse would not survive the turn, neither would the boy trapped beneath the wagon rail. Landon saw one arm gripping the side. Someone is inside! Naiyla reached the rear frame and caught it with both hands. Wood cracked beneath her fingers. The horse pulled forward, dragging her boots through the mud. Landon ran beside the animal. He could not overpower it. He could see what the others had missed. The left rein had wrapped beneath the broken shaft. Each attempt to turn pulled the bit harder into the horse's mouth, increasing its panic. Landon seized the hanging leather and cut it with the small bread knife at his belt. The pressure released. The horse veered away from the bridge. Naiyla hauled the wagon sideways. It overturned against the muddy bank. The trapped boy screamed, "Landon!" Dropped beside him. The rail pinned one. Naiyla reached for it. Landon caught her. Wrist, slowly. I can lift it. You can also shift the axle onto his chest. She stopped. People had begun gathering. Several stared at Landon's hand around her wrist. Naiyla could have pulled free. Instead, she waited. Landon crawled beneath the frame and wedged his wooden paddle beside the axle. He told Naiyla where to lift. Together they raised the weight. The boy slid free. His mother pushed through the crowd and gathered him into her arms. Her name was Rebecca Foster, a copyist who prepared shipping manifests for merchants. She thanked Landon first, then she looked at Naiyla. Fear fought gratitude on her face. At last she lowered her head. Thank you. Naiyla said nothing, but the words mattered. Sebastian arrived after the horse calmed. Captain Henry Lawson followed him from the watch station. Sebastian inspected the wagon and spilled grain. Landon's stomach sank. The wagon belonged to Graves Shipping. The grain became Landon's only after delivery. 6 sacks ruined, Sebastian said. 3. The others are intact. The contract makes you responsible once the cart enters town. The wheel failed. Sebastian crouched beside the broken hub. The wood had been sawn almost through. Naiyla saw the smooth cut. So did Landon. Captain Henry saw it too. His hand moved toward the damaged wood. Sebastian covered the cut with his glove. Poor maintenance. You cut it, Naiyla said. Sebastian stood. Be careful. I know the tool marks. So do I. He turned toward Henry. You heard that accusation. I heard it. Record it. Henry kept looking at the hub. I will record what I witnessed. Sebastian's tone sharpened. Your office roof was repaired with my timber. Henry finally met his gaze. I witnessed enough to know the wheel deserves inspection. It was not a rebellion. It was the first time Landon heard the captain resist him. Sebastian moved close enough that only they could hear. Your brother still works in my warehouse. Henry's face became unreadable. The moment ended. Sebastian added the ruined grain to Landon's debt and left. Rain turned the spilled flour into paste. Naiyla offered to pay. No. You lost it because you followed me. I followed a horse. You followed because I ran. The boy would have died. That does not refill your flour bin. Neither would letting him die. Naiyla became quiet. Darius had measured most actions by what they protected or produced. Landon seemed willing to lose something simply because someone needed help. It looked foolish. It also made her want to stand closer. Rebecca returned carrying one dry sack saved from the wagon. The others gathered what they could. Behind her stood Mrs. Agnes Parker, the butcher, 2 stable workers, and Captain Henry. The captain did not meet Naiyla's eyes. He carried a half-full sack. They recovered enough grain for 3 days. Not much. Enough. As the others left, Henry remained near the wagon. When he believed no one was watching, he cut a shaving from the damaged hub and slipped it inside his coat. That night, Sebastian met the tall thug beneath the river warehouse. You cut too deeply, he said. The horse should have reached the bridge. I wanted Pierce frightened, not dead. What about the orc? She will become violent eventually. And if she does not, Sebastian looked toward the Smokehouse Hill, then we burn what she's trying to save. Naiyla arrived before sunrise carrying smoked hams, dried sausage, onions and enough pepper to frighten Landon. He stood at the work table with his sleeves rolled above his elbows. "You are early. You are half-dressed. This is how I work. Then I approve of human employment customs." His hands slipped in the dough. Naiyla smiled. The first week was awkward. By the second, Landon no longer asked where she wanted the meat trays. Naiyla knew which oven stone heated unevenly and how hard to kick the lower hinge. By the third week, they could prepare an entire morning batch without unnecessary words. Their silence was not empty. It was working silently. Landon shaped barley crusts. Naiyla sliced meat with a broad knife. 3 onions rolled from the table. A pepper jar followed. Landon caught it. Naiyla's hand reached it at the same moment. His fingers covered hers. Neither released the jar. "You catch well. I work near expensive breakable things." I was not speaking about the pepper. Landon removed his hand. She watched him turn away. Travelers became regular customers. Mill workers followed. Most human residents still paused outside before entering, but hunger gradually defeated fear. When one customer asked whether the meat was fresh, Naiyla told him it had been dead for 6 weeks, but properly cured. Landon stepped in. "She means it was smoked using traditional methods. Humans prefer comforting lies." "Frequently." "That explains your courtship," the customer laughed. Naiyla froze for half a breath. No one had laughed with her since Darius's funeral. Landon noticed but spared her the embarrassment of mentioning it. By evening they had earned 4 silver crowns. Naiyla stood close enough that her hip touched Landon's shoulder while he counted. "We made 4. "We?" He looked up. She was smiling. "We made 4. "Better." He divided the coins equally. Naiyla pushed 2 back. "You provided the flour and oven. You provided the meat." "My meat was worth more." "Then why are you giving me extra?" She pointed at the bowl beneath the ceiling leak. "Your roof. I will repair it." "With what?" Landon returned 1 coin. 1, 2, 1. Naiyla leaned until her mouth was near his ear. "Do humans always negotiate this poorly when a woman is trying to provide for them?" A chill moved over his neck. He turned. Their faces almost touched. A knock sounded at the rear door. They stepped apart. Kara entered carrying a leather apron. She was an older orc woman with grey in her braids and burn scars along one arm. I interrupted something. "No," Landon said. "Yes," Naiyla said. Kara warned them that Sebastian had measured the smokehouse walls and questioned neighboring workers. "He is preparing to take it. He cannot before the deadline. He can if the watch agrees you are dangerous." Landon asked for Naila's payment records. Darius kept them in a chest. "Where is it?" Sebastian's men removed it after the funeral. They called it collateral. Kara added that Sebastian had done worse. A widow named Sarah Bennett lost her riverside cottage after Sebastian invented repair charges. She and her daughters now slept behind an inn. A farmer named Patrick Doyle hanged himself after Sebastian seized the autumn harvest. An orc quarry family had been forced from a rented house in winter. Their youngest child died of fever in a wagon camp outside town. Sebastian had not killed anyone with his own hands. He had only signed papers and sent men. "We need Darius's chest," Landon said. Kara asked how they planned to enter Sebastian's warehouse. Naiyla smiled. Landon recognized the expression. "No." I said nothing. "You were about to suggest breaking a door. I was about to suggest direct retrieval. That is violence wearing polite boots." Naiyla leaned across the counter. "Then suggest something clever, Baker." Landon looked at the autumn market notice. The festival began in 3 weeks. Sebastian always hosted the opening supper inside his warehouse courtyard. Landon slowly smiled. "That expression is attractive," Naiyla said. "I am planning a theft. It remains attractive. The days changed them through small acts rather than declarations." Naiyla learned that Landon saved every heel of bread for anyone arriving hungry after closing. Landon learned Naiyla tasted each batch of smoked meat twice, once for flavor, and once with her eyes closed because her mother taught her to listen to the aftertaste. Orc food was built around endurance. Dense bread, salted roots, and smoked meat strong enough to survive mountain winters. Human food, Naiyla said, often seemed designed to disappear. That is why people gather to eat it, Landon replied. Orcs served bitter bread after funerals because grief should not be disguised. Humans brought honey cakes because grief could make people forget sweetness still existed. Neither custom seemed foolish, once explained. At the end of the third week, Naiyla took Landon to the smokehouse. 4 blackened walls enclosed 2 iron ovens. A carved wooden wolf hung above the entrance, not as a royal symbol, but as the mark of Naiyla's maternal household. Inside, herbs hung from beams. The eastern chimney carried Darius's funeral band beneath its cap. Naiyla showed Landon the stone containing his ashes. When Sebastian takes this place, he will remove the ovens and sell the stone. Landon rested his hand against the wall. I understand now. What? Why did you not hit the men in the alley? If I break a human arm, they call me violent. If Sebastian takes my home with ink, they call him lawful. Outside, evening gathered over the fields. Naiyla built a small fire with juniper and oak. Among her people, the third week after starting a shared task was marked by a truth meal. Partners ate without weapons and asked one question the other could not refuse. Landon sat across from her. Naiyla placed her knife beyond reach. What do you fear most? He expected a question about Sebastian. Instead, he looked into the fire. That I will fail when someone depends on me. You saved the boy. I could not save my parents. I could not keep Lydia. I could not stop the man behind the bakery from freezing. Landon told her about a laborer he once ignored because he assumed the man was drunk. By morning, the stranger was dead. That is why you stepped into the alley. Yes, you did not know me. I knew no one else was moving. Landon asked his question. What do you fear most? Naiyla remained silent for a long time. Orc truth meals did not allow refusal, that everyone I love will become another place I am forced to mourn. Landon understood Darius. Then she added something he had never considered. Orcs live longer than humans. By how much? Not centuries. Decades sometimes. The fire cracked. If I choose a human, I may watch him become old, while I remain strong enough to carry him. Then I will place his ashes beside another fire and live after him. You are afraid to want me, because I will die. I am afraid to want you, because I may have to survive you, Landon. Moved around the fire and sat beside her. I cannot promise years I do not have. I know, I can promise not to make fewer years out of fear. Naiyla looked at him. This was not flirtation. It was the first moment she saw him as someone who might understand the cost of loving her. She placed her hand over his, neither kissed. The restraint made the touch more intimate. A horse neighed below the hill, then another. Answered, Naiyla stood. 3 riders were circling the smokehouse. 1 carried a torch. The rider stayed beyond the fence. Landon saw a torch move toward the dry grass near the western wall. He ran for the water. Barrel Naiyla caught his coat. Stay behind me. You cannot fight 3 mounted men without witnesses. I can frighten them. That may be what they want. The torch flew. It struck the roof. Dry moss ignited. Landon seized a ladder. Naiyla lifted the full water barrel and threw it against the wall. It shattered, soaking the lower flames, but not the roof. Another torch landed near the herb store. Naiyla could have chased the riders. If she left, the building would burn. Sebastian had designed the choice carefully. Her strength had not vanished. It had been forced to choose where it mattered. Naiyla climbed the wall and tore burning thatch from the roof with her bare hands. Landon carried water from the curing. One beam cracked. Naiyla shouted for him to move. The beam fell between them. Landon disappeared behind. Sparks. Naiyla dropped from the roof. For one terrible second, she could not see him. Then Landon crawled through the smoke, dragging a heavy wooden chest. It was Naiyla's family deed chest. Inside were the original smokehouse deed. inheritance records, the names of adopted children, and the written account of the chimney ash rite. Without it, Sebastian could claim the building belonged to Darius alone, and therefore passed into his debt. You went back for that? It was beside the fire. You could have died. So could your family. The roof groaned. Naiyla lifted Landon under one arm and carried him outside. The riders were gone. The smokehouse survived, but the western roof collapsed. One curing room and half the stored meat burned. Naiyla stood in the wet grass watching smoke rise. Landon touched her shoulder. She turned and struck him across the chest. Not hard enough to injure, hard enough to shock. Do not do that again. Save the deed. Make me choose between stopping a fire and watching you die. Landon's fear became anger. I'm not something you can lock away because you are stronger. I can protect you. You cannot protect me from everything. I can try, and when you fail... Naiyla became still. Landon immediately understood what he had touched. Darius, her father, everyone she had outlived. I'm afraid too, he said. Of what? That when danger comes, I will always be the smaller one standing behind. You. You think I need a stronger man. I think you deserve someone who can carry you when the roof falls. Naiyla stepped closer. You carried what mattered to me. It was a chest. It was 4 generations of names. Her burned palms trembled. Landon took them carefully. Back at the bakery, he treated her hands with honey salve and clean cloth. Naiyla sat on the reinforced bench while he wrapped each finger. She hated being unable to work. She hated needing him. Landon did not tell her. She should not. He simply worked. How will I prepare meat tomorrow? She asked. I will cut it. You cut too. Slowly, you will. Direct. You dislike being directed by most people. Her mouth almost curved. Landon lifted one bandaged hand and kissed her knuckles. Naiyla's breath changed. This moment carried no teasing, only trust. She leaned down and rested her forehead against his. I thought the roof had taken you. It did. Not I heard the beam fall. I know. Do not ask me to. Survive you before I must. Landon touched her face. I will not waste the time before. Then she kissed him. Slowly, her bandaged hands remained at her sides. So Landon held her face and guided the closeness. For once, Naiyla surrendered control. That night she slept in his bed, one heavy arm across his chest. Before dawn, someone slid a note beneath the bakery. The next fire would begin while they were sleeping. Captain Henry stood outside the window. He had seen the messenger. He walked away without arresting him. Landon found Henry behind the watch station. You saw him? Yes. You let him leave? Yes. Why? The captain stared at the rain. My brother Samuel lost a leg at the quarry. Sebastian gave him warehouse work when no one else would. Samuel, Eliza, and their children live in a Graves house. If I arrest Sebastian's collector without proof, they will be homeless by sunset, so you let them threaten us. I'm telling you the cost of my courage. Henry removed a cloth packet from his coat. Inside was the shaving he cut from the wagon wheel. The mark came from a narrow mill saw. Graves's repair shed is the only one in town. Will you testify? Not yet. Then what good is it? It gives you something that can be examined. We already know Sebastian did it. You know, the law requires more. Landon took the shaving. Henry gripped his shoulder. Sebastian does not want Naiyla dead. He wants her publicly violent, legally ruined, and alone. You are the variable he did not expect. That sounds flattering. It means he will remove you. Henry glanced toward the bakery. The market magistrate arrives in 3 weeks. Do not trust him merely because he wears a county seal. Whose side are you on? The captain breathed deeply. I have been asking myself that since the alley. Over the next 10 days, routine returned. Naiyla's palms healed. Landon learned to slice meat faster. The smokehouse received a temporary roof of tarred canvas. Their earnings grew slowly, then shrank when Landon bought new beams. Their attraction changed shape. At first, Naiyla stood close only to make him blush. Now she also stood close when a hostile customer entered. Landon no longer touched her waist, only because he desired her. Sometimes he guided her away from someone trying to provoke a reaction. One afternoon, Naiyla caught him staring at the healed burns across her palms. "You look guilty. I should have stopped you climbing the roof. You could not have. That is part of the problem." "What problem?" "I cannot protect you the way you protect me." Naiyla came around the counter and placed his hand over the center of her chest. Her heartbeat was heavy. Beneath his palm. Protection is not always standing in front. What is it? Sometimes it is reminding someone powerful where not to strike. She covered his hand with hers. "If you try to become stronger than me, you will fail. That is encouraging. If you become more useful than your fear, you may survive." Landon almost smiled. "This is the part where humans usually kiss," Naiyla said. "Is it?" "I have been studying." Landon kissed her. There was no interruption, no danger, no furniture breaking. The moment was quiet and domestic, which made it more frightening than hunger. Landon could imagine repeating it years later. Naiyla seemed to imagine the same thing. "Do not promise forever," she whispered. "I was not going to." "Good. I was going to promise tomorrow morning." Her fingers tightened around his. "That will do." 6 weeks had passed since the alley when the autumn market arrived. The smokehouse roof had survived 2 storms. Landon and Naiyla had paid their ordinary expenses, but Sebastian's false debt remained. Naiyla entered the bakery wearing a dark red blouse instead of morning black. The fabric followed the strength of her body. Her hair hung loose except for 2 braids. Landon stared. "Is something wrong?" "No." "Do I look strange?" "No." "Unattractive?" Landon nearly choked. "No. What do I look like?" "Dangerous. That is not new. Beautiful." Naiyla became still, beautiful and distracting. Her tusks showed that was almost an courtship. "Do not become proud." Too late, she smoothed his coat. "You also look beautiful." "I look tired." "I like tired men. Why?" "They are easier to catch." Landon caught her wrist and pulled her closer. "You assume I am trying to escape, are you?" "No." He kissed her. It was brief and not gentle. The oven timer rang. They ignored it. It rang again. "The bread." Landon whispered. "Let it burn. That is offensive." "Then save it." Sebastian's warehouse courtyard hosted the opening supper. Landon had accepted an order that gave them legal access. Kara managed their market stall. Landon distracted the clerk while Naiyla searched the office for Darius's payment chest. The chest was irreplaceable. It contained the original loan agreement, every receipt Darius received, Naiyla's payment marks, and the clerk's wax seals. Copies could support a case, but only the originals could cancel the debt. The office lock opened with Kara's thin iron tool. The chest stood beneath the desk. Footsteps approached. Naiyla hid behind a curtain. Sebastian entered with the clerk. "The altered contracts are becoming obvious," the clerk said. "People see what fear permits them to see. You said Graves shipping would recover. It will. You lost 2 southern contracts. My father lost everything when creditors saw weakness. I will not repeat his humiliation. You are collecting from people who paid. Survival does not care about fairness." Sebastian mentioned Naiyla's smokehouse, Landon's bakery, 4 farms, and riverside cottages. Once seized, the properties would cover his failing shipping business. Naiyla understood. Sebastian was feeding one dying business by destroying smaller lives. After the men left, she opened the chest. Darius had paid 52 crowns. Naiyla had paid another 27. Sebastian had taken 79 crowns on a 60-crown loan and still claimed she owed 68. The office door opened. The tall thug stood there. "I knew the baker was too weak to keep you busy." "You mistake gentleness for weakness." He drew a club. When he swung, Naiyla caught his wrist and turned him face first onto the desk. "You will remain quiet." He tried to move. The desk creaked. He stopped. Naiyla tied him with the curtain cord and climbed through the window carrying the chest. Landon waited outside. The alarm bell rang. Sebastian's men followed them into the market. Landon led Naiyla through the livestock lane and into the festival dance. She was too tall to disappear. He caught her hand and pulled her among the dancers. "What are you doing? Hiding? By dancing? Try to look less hunted. I do not know this dance, neither do half of them." He placed one hand at her waist while Naiyla held the chest beneath her cloak. Her first step nearly crushed his foot. Her second struck another couple. By the third, she found the rhythm. Sebastian's men entered the square. Landon pulled her closer. "This is a terrible plan," she whispered. "You seem to enjoy it." "I enjoy where your hand is." The dance was more than flirtation. It was the first time they moved together in public. People stared. Landon did not release her. Naiyla, who could lift him with one arm, followed his smaller steps and trusted his timing. The pursuers passed. They escaped to the smokehouse and locked the chest inside the deed cabinet. "We have the truth," Naiyla said. "We have proof. Truth does not always win alone." She touched his chest. "You came back for me. I said I would. People say many things. I am not a person." She kissed him. The urgency of escape remained, but they did not rush. Naiyla rested her head against his shoulder. "I do not want to lose this place." "You will not." "You cannot promise that," Landon corrected himself. "I will stand with you if we lose it." That promise meant more. A knock sounded. 3 measured strikes. The visitor was Lydia Carter. Lydia looked older than Landon remembered, better dressed, tired around the eyes. Naiyla knew the name. Lydia had been the woman who left because she did not believe love could survive poverty. She carried a leather purse. "I came to speak with Landon." "Speak," Naiyla said. "Privately." Landon asked why she had come. Lydia offered enough silver to save his bakery and work in her late husband's cloth company. "What do you want?" "A conversation." Naiyla stepped away. Landon and Lydia spoke behind the smokehouse. Lydia admitted she regretted leaving. Seeing Landon with Naiyla forced her to confront what she had abandoned. Landon felt the ache of a life that might once have existed. He did not want it back. When Lydia cried, he gave her a cloth. She embraced him. He did not return the embrace, but he did not push her away immediately. Sebastian's collector watched from the trees. That evening, Naiyla found a note beneath the door. It claimed Landon had accepted Lydia's money and planned to leave Brindleford. It described the embrace. Naiyla told herself it was a lie. Fear did not listen. Lydia was human, familiar, and accepted. Naiyla had never been chosen when an easier woman stood nearby. She went to the bakery after dark. Landon stood beside Lydia's open purse. "You took her money." "No. It is open. I counted it so I could return the exact amount. She held you." Landon's face changed. "Who told you?" "So it happened." "It happened, not the way the note claims." "That is a useful human sentence." Landon came around the counter. Naiyla stepped back. "What do you believe I did?" "I believe she offered you a life that does not require defending yourself every morning." "I did not accept. She fits your world." "My world is this bakery, and she fits inside it." Landon lost patience. "So this is about her size. It is about everything. She knows your customs. Your people accept her. She will never break your furniture, frighten customers, or make someone paint a traitor across your window." "I do not want a quieter woman." "You wanted her before." "Yes." The word landed between them. Naiyla turned toward the door. Landon caught her wrist. She pulled free. A jar fell and shattered. Berry preserves spread across the floor. "Yes," Landon admitted. "For one moment I wondered what my life would have been. And did it look better?" "It looked easier." The answer hurt, but easy is not the same as wanted. Landon showed her Lydia's letter. Across the bottom was his refusal. Naiyla read it. The proof did not repair everything. They stood apart while the oven cooled. "I pictured her sleeping where I slept," Naiyla said. "People congratulating you for returning to your senses." Landon remained silent. I believed it because I already believed I was temporary. Darius never chose me. My family offered me. His accepted. Sebastian wants the smokehouse. The town wants me quiet. Her voice weakened. You were the first person who made me feel wanted instead of useful. Landon came closer, but did not touch her. Lydia leaving taught me that anyone can love me until loving me becomes inconvenient. He admitted he enjoyed seeing Lydia regret her choice, not because he loved her, but because he wanted her to feel the rejection he carried. Do you still love her? No. Did you enjoy being wanted by her? Landon took time before answering. Yes. The honesty hurt, but Naiyla stayed. They cleaned the broken jar in silence. When the floor was clean, they sat against opposite counters. I do not know how to trust without fear, Naiyla said. I do not know how to be questioned without hearing rejection. That will cause problems. It already has. A tired laugh escaped her. What happens now? We do not pretend the note did nothing. And after that, we decide whether fear speaks for us. Naiyla moved closer. Do you choose me? Landon took her hand. I choose you when you are bold, jealous, and unreasonable. I choose you when you frighten me or make me face parts of myself I would rather hide. But choosing you does not mean we never doubt. It means we tell the truth before doubt becomes cruelty. Naiyla's eyes glistened. I choose you when you are brave, and when you enjoy being wanted by someone who rejected you. I dislike that part. So do I. But I choose the whole man. Their first kiss was awkward. Naiyla's tusk caught his lip. Landon laughed. Then he pulled her closer. The second kiss carried anger, relief, and fear. Naiyla pressed him against the counter, but stopped before her strength became an answer instead of a question. Still angry, she breathed. Yes. Good. Why? Because so am I. It was not a clean reconciliation. It was two wounded people refusing to leave while the wounds remained open. Naiyla carried him upstairs. What followed stayed fierce but careful. Every touch asked, every answer was freely given. Anger became desperate closeness, then something slower. By morning, the insecurity remained. So did they. When they returned Lydia's purse, a crossbow bolt struck the wall beside Landon's head. The second bolt was aimed directly at Naiyla. Sebastian had tried intimidation, arson, and now murder. Landon and Naiyla possessed the original payment chest, but exposing it could cost their businesses, freedom, or lives. What should they do next? Trust the magistrate, rally the other debtors, or leave Brindleford before Sebastian strikes again? Share your prediction and subscribe to Orc Saga to see whether their love survives the final risk. Naiyla moved before the second bolt reached them. She shoved Landon behind a stone trough. The bolt struck her upper arm. The shooter fled on horseback. Naiyla broke the shaft and started after him. Landon caught her uninjured arm. You are bleeding. He is escaping. That may be what he wants. The rider moved slowly enough to remain visible. A trap. Chasing would leave Landon exposed and draw Naiyla beyond witnesses. She stayed. Lydia pulled them inside her shop. Landon removed the bolt head while Lydia held a lamp. The wound was shallow, but dirty. Lydia watched the way Naiyla trusted Landon's hands. Something settled inside her. Not jealousy, understanding. She gave them a cloth company invoice bearing Sebastian's signature and the false name used to move seized properties. It did not prove Naiyla's debt fraud. It proved Sebastian had a system. I cannot repair what I did years ago, Lydia said, but I can stop being afraid now. Naiyla lowered her head. Thank you. They would never become close friends. Respect was enough. That night, Landon and Naiyla moved the payment chest from the smokehouse. Kara arranged a hiding place in the abandoned quarry. Mrs. Agnes Parker's nephew, Mason Parker, provided a covered cart. Rebecca Foster joined them. because she recognized the false buyer's name on Lydia's invoice. The solution no longer belonged to one person. Lydia provided the invoice. Rebecca connected the false names. Cara found a hiding place. Mrs. Agnes sent the cart. Landon and Naiyla carried the original evidence. Snow began falling as they climbed toward the quarry. The storm came early and fast. They sheltered beneath an old stone cutting shed while Cara continued toward the tunnels with the chest. Landon built a fire. Naiyla's wounded arm had stiffened. He wrapped her in his coat, though it barely covered her shoulders. "You will freeze. I am beside a large source of heat." That was almost flattering. It was completely practical. The storm worsened. "I could have failed today," Naiyla said. "You did not. The bolt was aimed at you first. I noticed. I cannot stand between you and every weapon." "I know. That does not frighten you. It terrifies me. I am not afraid because you are weak. I am afraid because I love someone the world keeps trying to punish." It was the first time he used the word. Naiyla did not answer immediately. Then she placed her hand behind his neck. "I love you too, and I hate that your life will be shorter. I hate that you will remember me longer than I remember anything." They did not solve the problem. They sat beside it. Outside, snow buried the road. Inside, Naiyla taught Landon an orc morning song. It had no words, only a low melody sung when someone feared a loss that had not yet happened. Landon joined poorly. Naiyla almost laughed. The door opened. Captain Henry Lawson entered alone, snow covering his shoulders. His left hand held an arrest warrant. "For Naiyla?" Landon asked. Henry looked at them. "For both of you." Captain Henry closed the door. The magistrate arrived early. Judge Warren Holloway. He met Sebastian before entering town. "You warned me not to trust him," Landon said. "I suspected it. Now I know. The warrant accused Landon and Naiyla of theft, assault, fraud, and conspiracy. Why bring it here?" "Sebastian ordered me to arrest you before dawn, recover the chest, and report that Naiyla resisted. He wants me dead," Naiyla said. "He wants you legally killable." Henry looked at Landon. "My brother Samuel's family still lives in a Graves house. If I refuse publicly, Samuel, Eliza, and their children are outside before breakfast. So what happens?" Henry placed the wagon hub shaving beside the warrant. "I am finished pretending my fear protects them. It only keeps Sebastian powerful enough to threaten them tomorrow. He promised to delay the search until noon." "Why should we trust you?" Naiyla asked. "You should not. Use the hours I am giving you." Landon stopped him at the door. "If Sebastian falls, Graves' shipping may close. Samuel loses his work anyway." "Yes. Then what changed?" Henry looked toward the storm. "Samuel asked my son what kind of man I was. He left. At first light, Landon, Naiyla, Cara, Rebecca, Mason, and Mrs. Agnes gathered in the quarry storehouse. The payment chest sat on a stone table. Rebecca had completed a list of false buyers connected to 12 seized properties. Mrs. Agnes had collected 6 possible witnesses only. 2 agreed to testify publicly. Cara suggested carrying the chest to the county court, but the road would take 2 days. They did not have 2 days. Naiyla looked at the chest. "We take it to the square." "Warren is Sebastian's man," Landon said. "Then we expose both." "With 2 witnesses?" 3, Mrs. Agnes said. She placed her receipts on the table. "You have grandchildren in a Graves house." Landon reminded her. "I know. He will remove them. I know." Her hands trembled. "I spent 10 years telling people to be careful. Patrick Doyle was careful. Sarah Bennett was careful. The quarry child's mother was careful. Sebastian took from them anyway. They left before noon. In the market square, Judge Warren Holloway waited beside. Sebastian, Captain Henry, and 4 constables stood near the watch station. Landon carried the chest with Mason. Naiyla walked beside them with her wounded arm bound beneath her cloak. Sebastian smiled. "You saved us the trouble of searching." Warren ordered the chest. Surrendered. Landon refused. The judge declared the refusal proof of theft. Naiyla spoke. "Chest belongs to Darius's household. It contains the original contract and receipts." Sebastian laughed. A criminal can put any paper in a box. Rebecca presented the false buyer list. Warren barely glanced at it. Copies. Lydia produced the original cloth invoice, then read this. The judge examined the seal. Uncertainty crossed his face. Sebastian whispered to him. Warren declared the invoice and related Mrs. Agnes raised her receipts. Calvin Ross, the farmer, appeared at the back of the crowd. He stepped forward. Sebastian looked at him. Your winter grain is stored in my warehouse. Calvin stopped before he could retreat. Rebecca's son walked into the open. The boy still limped from the wagon. Accident. That man broke the wheel. The crowd stirred. Warren ordered Captain Henry to seize the chest. Henry did not move. Sebastian turned. Your brother's house. Henry's jaw worked. He stepped toward Landon. For one terrible moment, Landon believed the captain had chosen fear. Henry reached the chest, placed one hand on its lid, then turned his body between it and the judge. I examined the wagon hub, he said. It was cut with a Graves repair saw. Silence spread. Henry's choice had not appeared from nowhere. It had taken weeks of shame. Warren ordered the other constables to arrest him. 2 moves. The others hesitated. Sebastian's tall collector appeared on horseback with 3 warehouse men. Take the chest, Sebastian ordered. Confusion erupted. The collector seized the box and rode toward the river. Naiyla followed. Landon caught a loose horse and climbed into the saddle. The chase cut through the lower street and onto the bridge. Snow made the board slick. The collector threw the chest to Sebastian, who had mounted during the confusion. Sebastian rode halfway across the bridge and held the box over the river. If this falls, you lose every original receipt and every claim. Naiyla could reach him. If she rushed, he would drop it. Landon looked at the old mill chain hanging beneath the bridge. Sebastian saw him. You think you can retrieve it? No, Landon said. Sebastian dropped the chest. It struck the river and vanished. The loss mattered. No copy could cancel the debt. No shipping ledger could replace Darius's receipts. Landon jumped. The river closed over him. Cold stole his breath. His shoulder struck wood. The chest had caught against the old mill chain beneath the surface. Landon seized one iron handle. The current twisted him sideways. Naiyla jumped from the bridge. Her stronger body reached him within seconds, but the freezing water and wounded arm weakened her grip. Landon pointed toward the chest. Naiyla caught the mill chain with one hand and his coat with the other. The box tore free. For one terrible moment, Naiyla had to choose between Landon and the evidence. Landon released the chest. Naiyla caught him. The current carried the box away. A rope struck the water beside them. Captain Henry stood on the bridge with Mrs. Agnes, Kara, and several townspeople. Mason had tied the rope to a grain. Hook Kara threw a second line beyond the chest. It caught one iron corner. The community pulled. Naiyla held Landon above the water, while the others dragged them to the bank. The chest struck a bridge. The lid cracked. Water poured inside. Landon was barely conscious when they reached shore. The box lay beside him, damaged but recovered. Several receipts had dissolved. The original contract survived inside a waxed sleeve. 5 payment receipts remained. Readable. 14 were ruined. They had not recovered everything. They had recovered enough. If the witnesses stayed, the confrontation resumed inside the town hall because Landon could not stand in the snow. Naiyla wrapped him in blankets near the stove while the damaged chest lay open on a table. Sebastian remained beneath. Guard Warren insisted the surviving papers were insufficient. Rebecca placed her shipping manifests beside the contract. Receipt numbers matched entries she had copied during ordinary freight work. Her records did not replace the chest. They supported what survived. Kara testified that Darius kept the receipts in sequence. Mrs. Agnes identified the clerk's seal. Calvin described the false fees added to his grain loan. Lydia's invoice showed the invented buyers used to hide seized property. Henry's wood shaving tied the sabotaged wagon to Sebastian's repair shed. No Single person solved the case. Each held one piece. The damaged evidence became sufficient because the community stood behind it. Warren attempted to leave. Captain Henry blocked the door. "You have no authority to detain me," Warren said. "The county judge does. He is 2 days away." Mason entered the hall, soaked and exhausted. Mrs. Agnes had sent him to the county court after the first debtors' meeting. She had kept the plan secret, so Sebastian could not stop him. The county judge would arrive before nightfall. Henry placed Warren under temporary arrest. Sebastian looked at him. "Your brother lost his home today." "My brother packed before dawn." The county judge arrived after sunset. He reviewed the surviving originals: Rebecca's manifests, Lydia's invoice, the wheel shaving, and 8 testimonies. He avoided Naiyla's remaining debt. He suspended Sebastian's seizures. He ordered an audit of grave shipping and arrested Warren for fraud. Sebastian stood while Henry placed irons around his wrists. For the first time, he looked smaller than his coat. "They will regret this. When my warehouses close, courage will not feed their children." Landon stood wrapped in blankets, still shaking from the river. "Neither did your fear." Sebastian looked at him. "When you have watched men carry your mother's bed into the street, then tell me what fear makes sense." "I believe that happened to you," Landon said. "I also believe you made certain it happened to everyone else." Sebastian's gaze moved toward Naiyla and the damaged chest. For one brief moment, shame reached his face, then pride covered it. "My father begged." "I promised I never would," Naiyla answered. "So you made begging the price. Everyone else paid for your promise." Sebastian looked away. He did not apologize. The judge let him out. Justice had won. It had not won cleanly. 3 mornings later, Landon and Naiyla walked to the warehouse district. Graves Shipping had closed during the audit. 50 workers waited outside locked gates for wages that could not be released until the ledgers were examined. Among them was Captain Henry's brother, Samuel Lawson. He leaned on a wooden crutch, one trouser leg pinned above the knee. His wife, Eliza Lawson, stood beside a cart carrying their belongings and 2 children. Sebastian had owned their house. The court had frozen the property. They could not remain inside until ownership was settled. Naiyla stopped several steps away. The consequences now had faces. Little girl sat on the cart, holding a cracked wooden horse. Her brother clutched a blanket bundle. Eliza saw Henry approaching behind Landon. "You chose strangers." "I chose the law," Henry said. "The law does not keep rain off children." Samuel looked at his brother. "You should have acted sooner. If you had moved when the first widow lost her home, perhaps Sebastian would not have owned ours." The accusation was not entirely fair. It was not entirely wrong. Naiyla looked at the closed warehouse. There, victory had helped collapse the business paying these families. Sebastian was responsible. Responsibility did not make the children warmer. Landon approached. "Eliza, the bakery has a storage room. It is small. We are used to being small," Naiyla added. "The smokehouse has an unused curing room once the roof is rebuilt. We do not want pity." "It is not a pity," Naiyla said. "We need workers." That was only partly true. The smokehouse could use help, not 4 people. Samuel saw through it. "You cannot employ everyone," Sebastian abandoned. "No," Naiyla said. The honesty mattered. Landon looked at the waiting workers. "Then we do not pretend we can." He proposed using their market savings to begin a shared kitchen for displaced families. Mrs. Agnes offered rooms above her laundry. Gara knew quarry owners needing wagon repairers. Rebecca could help workers document unpaid wages. It would not solve everything. One family still had to leave Brindleford. Connor Wells, a warehouse loader, placed his wife and infant on a northbound cart because he could not wait weeks for work to return. Naiyla offered him money. He accepted only enough for food. "My father hated orcs," he said. Naiyla remained quiet. "He would call me weak for taking your coin. What do you call yourself?" "Tired." Naiyla placed the silver in his palm. "Tired. People still deserve to eat." The cart rolled away. Landon watched until it disappeared beyond the Gatepot, their win had stopped theft. It had not prevented suffering. That evening, Landon sat beside Naiyla inside the damaged smokehouse. Was it worth it? The smokehouse is safe. That was not my question. After a long silence, Naiyla answered, "Justice that hurts innocent people is not good. Allowing Sebastian to continue would have hurt more." That sounds like something people say when they need to sleep. Yes, Landon. Look toward Darius's funeral. Band. What do orcs do after a victory that does not feel like one? We count who is missing. Naiyla broke a piece of bitter funeral bread and gave Landon half. They ate in silence. Then they wrote the displaced families' names in the household ledger, not as property, but as debts of care. When their new business opened, those names would receive their first choice of work. The cost of justice remained. So did their responsibility to answer it. That evening, Naiyla placed her black mourning clothes on the bakery table. The debt was settled, by orc custom. Mourning had ended. What will you do with them? Landon asked. Burn them. That seems dramatic. I am an orc. You could cut them into cleaning cloths. Naiyla looked offended. My grief will not wipe flour from your shelves. Then keep one piece. Why? Ending mourning does not erase Darius. Naiyla removed a narrow strip from the cloak and folded it inside a wooden box. Before burning the rest, she performed the final widow's rite. She placed salt, oak ash, and bitter bread on a flat stone. Kara sang the low mourning melody. Naiyla spoke Darius's name and thanked him for the years that had been honest, the work they had built, and even the anger that taught her what she wanted from another life. Then she burned the cloak. The wool curled, smoke rose, when only ash remained. Naiyla stepped close to Landon. I am no longer a widow in debt. No, I am no longer bound to Darius's household. No. Then I am free to choose. She placed her hands at his waist. She wanted him, not because he rescued her, but because he understood the difference between strength and control. Because he let her grieve without demanding that she remain inside grief. Landon smiled. What expression am I making? The one that means you are about to ruin my speech. I would not dare. Liar. She leaned down. Their mouths almost touched. For all her strength, Naiyla gave him the final distance. Landon closed it. The kiss began slowly. Then months of restraint gathered inside it. She lifted him slightly, and he laughed against her mouth. Naiyla carried him inside. He protested when she nearly struck his head against the doorframe. You are tall. The door is badly designed. She placed him on the bakery. Counter Landon pulled her between his knees. His fingers traced her jaw and the base of one tusk. Naiyla shivered. Too much. No. Again. Yes. The intimacy deepened through breathless pauses, quiet laughter, and the honesty of two people who had already seen each other afraid. The night belonged only to them. Later, Landon rested against Naiyla beside the cooling oven. I expected freedom to feel larger, she said. How does it feel? Like room to breathe? She tightened her arm around him, and like this, winter began to settle over Brindleford. The smokehouse roof changed from tarred canvas to oak and slate. The bakery received new glasses. Samuel began working in the curing room, where his missing leg did not prevent him from managing temperature records. Rebecca handled accounts. For a small worker cooperative, Mrs. Agnes supervised the shared kitchen and insulted anyone who called it charity. Kara carved a sign for the empty shop between the bakery and butcher 3 weeks after the widow's rite. Naiyla entered the bakery carrying a wooden box. Inside were 2 keys. One belonged to the smokehouse, the other belonged to the new shop. The court had sold Graves' properties to repay victims. Naiyla used part of her returned money to purchase half the building. Who owns the other half? Landon asked. You, if you accept. He closed the box. No. Naiyla stiffened. No? You cannot buy me property. I bought us property with your money, with money stolen from me and returned. It is still yours. Naiyla crossed her arms. You offered me pie when you barely had. Flour, that was different. You repaired my roof. You repaired mine. You stood between me and 3 men. They were drunk. You jumped into a freezing river for my payment chest. That was poor. Judgment. You kissed me against a work table. That had nothing to do with business. It improved my opinion of the partnership. Landon tried not to. Smile, Naiyla explained the shop could hold 6 tables. His oven could serve both rooms. Her smokehouse could supply meat. They could employ workers, graves shipping, abandoned. What would we call it? The shared oven. That sounds intimate. It is supposed to. Landon opened the box again. This is not only a business offer. No. Naiyla removed a carved bone bead from beneath her blouse. Landon wore its matching piece around his neck. Among her people, a widow choosing a new partner did not begin by asking for marriage. She asked whether their fires should become one household. Marriage came after a full cycle of seasons if both still chose the shared fire. Property brought into the union remained with its original family unless both partners carved their names into the household beam. Children, human, orc, adopted or born between species, inherited through the household rather than blood alone. Naiyla placed her key in Landon's palm. I want to wake beside you. I want to argue about salt. I want to work until we are tired and spend the night, making each other less tired. Landon raised his eyebrows. That sounds ambitious. I have endurance. Remember, she continued more quietly. I want your things beside mine. I want the smokehouse to remain in my family and the bakery in yours, but I want one door between them. Landon closed his fingers around the key. And when I am old, I will still choose you. When I cannot carry sacks, I will carry them. When will it become difficult? You are already difficult. Landon almost laughed. When you die, Naiyla said, if you die before me, I will place your ashes in the bakery oven stone if that is what you want. I will speak your name at every winter fire. I cannot promise not to grieve. I would not ask you to, but I promise not to refuse the years because they end. That was the real proposal, not a claim of forever, a promise to accept. Time. Landon placed the new key around her neck beside the bead. Yes. Naiyla. Stop breathing. Yes to the shop? Yes. And the shared fire? Yes. And when the season turns again? Landon touched her cheek. Ask me then. Naiyla smiled. That is irritatingly human. You enjoy me. Unfortunately, she lifted him by the waist. You enjoy doing that too much. Landon said, you enjoy pretending you dislike it. She kissed him. The doorbell rang. Mrs. Agnes entered, saw them, and turned around. I will return when the bread is less occupied. And Sheila laughed into Landon's hair. 1 year after the alley rescue, Naiyla decided to bake Landon a pie. She did not ask for help. That was her first mistake. She used too much water, too little flour, and enough honey to attract every bee in Brindlefoot. The crust collapsed. The filling burned. Smoke filled the kitchen. Landon ran downstairs wearing trousers and 1 boot. He found Naiyla beside the oven, holding a blackened pie. Is this an assassination attempt? It is a gift, a dangerous one. I followed your instructions. You once called measuring cups a human weakness. They remain a weakness. Landon opened the window. I wanted to make the pie from the night we met. Naiyla said, that one nearly burned because I was defending you. This one burned because you were not here to defend it. Landon laughed. Flour marked one of her cheeks. Berry filling shone on her lower lip. Landon wiped it away with his thumb. Naiyla caught his wrist. You came downstairs quickly. You filled the house with smoke. You forgot your shirt. Feared for the oven. Liar. She removed the berry stain from his thumb. With her lips, Landon stopped breathing. Naiyla released him with a satisfied look. Her flirting had improved, possibly too much. Landon caught her around the waist and guided her against the work table. Still think I came for the oven? I may require further evidence. Landon kissed her. The ruined pie remained between them for only seconds before Naiyla moved it aside. She lifted him onto the table. Landon kissed the base of one tusk. Naiyla's fingers tightened against his back, strong enough to remind him what she could do, controlled enough to show what she chose. Their desire had never been delicate. It was intense and physical, but never careless. Landon knew when Naiyla's growl meant pleasure, and when her stillness meant uncertainty. Naiyla knew when his challenge was playful, and when old rejection made him need reassurance. She kissed him with fierce hunger. He answered with equal force. Then the hunger softened. "You are safe with me," Naiyla said. "So are you." What began with heat became something deeper. Naiyla carried him upstairs, while Landon laughed. Against her neck, the pie was forgotten. The oven stayed warm. The rest of the morning belonged only to them. Later, they baked another pie together. That evening, snow fell outside the shared oven. Human laborers ate beside orc traders. Rebecca's son studied near the fire. Samuel Lawson recorded smokehouse temperatures. Mrs. Agnes argued with Cara about plum. Jam Brindleford had not become perfect. Many humans remained. Uneasy around orcs, some would never approve. Of Landon and Naiyla, a few families had left because justice came too late to save their work. But fear no longer controlled every room. Naiyla got the pie and gave Landon the larger piece. He raised one eyebrow. "Is that apology, gratitude, or courtship?" "Courtship. I thought we moved beyond that. Then consider it maintenance." Landon tasted the pie. It was too sweet. The crust was uneven. It was perfect. Naiyla watched him. "Well?" Landon smiled. "This pie smells wonderful." For a moment, they were back in the rainy alley with 3 thugs. Outside and no idea what one brave decision would cost. Then Naiyla took his hand. "I was flirting with you that night. I know. I had never done it before. That was obvious." She pulled him closer and kissed him while he laughed. Outside, snow covered the road where he had first stood between her and cruelty. Inside, their shared fire burned. Their future was not easy. It was chosen. Naiyla had believed strength meant carrying every burden alone. Landon had believed courage belonged only to men who knew how to fight. Captain Henry Lawson had believed fear protected his family if he obeyed the right man. Sebastian Graves had believed suffering gave him permission to cause suffering. They had all been wrong in different ways. Strength was using power without becoming cruel. Courage, standing beside someone when standing aside would be safer. Justice was not a clean victory. It was accepting responsibility for those harmed when a corrupt system finally broke. And love was not a promise that grief, jealousy, age, or fear would never reach them. Love was the decision that none of those things would make the choice for them. Moral. Pain can explain cruelty, but it never excuses passing that pain to someone weaker. Real love does not remove fear. It gives 2 people a reason to face it honestly and continue choosing each other. Viewer question. Which moment proved Landon and Naiyla's love most strongly? The Smokehouse Fire, the jealousy conflict, the river rescue, or the shared fire proposal? Share your answer in the comments. For more cinematic, emotional, and unforgettable human-orc romances, subscribe to Orc Bond Saga and turn on notifications. Your support helps us bring more stories where 2 different worlds find one shared home.